Hello everyone, and welcome back to Misfits Racing League. It's Tier 1 action in Budapest, the Hungarian Grand Prix for round 12 here. Joining me as always is Mikau. How you doing, Mikau, and how do you think this race is going to go?
Oh, I'm doing very, very well. Thank you for asking. As always, Strifium, I hope you're doing well as well. And all the ladies and gents at home, I hope you're in for a thriller. We saw just then quite a hectic and eventful Tier 2 race. So let's hope our Tier 1 drivers can give us a similar spectacle.
For sure.
Similar in some ways, I'll say.
Most definitely. So like we said, it is going to be round 12 today. The drivers taken to the circuit in Hungary. Next week, we'll see them in Bahrain, followed by Baku, Australia, Mexico, and for the final round of the MRL Season 2 Championship, Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix. To look at where we've gone so far, we've already been to, you can see there, round 11 Spa, of course the Belgium Grand Prix, but we've seen these drivers do battle through Abu Dhabi, Canada, France, Austria, Spain, Russia, Brazil, Germany, Britain, and of course the Temple of Speed in Italy. Now we have some driver changes today. Honning over at Renault has decided to step out of his seat and take on a position in the Tier 2 division, meaning that podium racer Luktra out of the Tier 2 division is making his Tier 1 debut today as a full-time driver. Of course, we've seen him throughout the season as a reserve, but now he has somewhere to hang his helmet. He is racing for Renault alongside none other than Falcon 9. Taking up their seats, though, at Ferrari, we have Zamajo and Rakety, Skybits and Chenje over at Haas, Fubar and Custom in the Mercedes, Zamis, aka Samus, who's gone through a name change recently. He will be taking up his seat with Undertaker over at Alfa Romeo. Bois and Jasko, as per usual, will be sitting over at Red Bull, Neon Rays and Henry in the Williams. Yoda and John for McLaren, BTFU and Young IP over at Toro Rosso, with Bear Gaming and Fusions, aka Tupaka, taking over their seats over at Racing Point. Now let's take a look at the standings as things are getting even more spicy. Zamajo currently leading the championship as before, 209 points for the Ferrari driver. Yoda currently in second with 123 points after Spa. For McLaren, Zamis in third, currently running third in the championship with 82 points. BTFU has dropped back. He was one of the front runners earlier on in the season, and he still is. However, he's going to have to do a little bit more to jump up into that top 3 slot. So he is 77 points in this championship. Neon Rays behind him by 11 points with 66, and that rounds off your top 5. Falcon, Rakety, Shenje, Henry, and Fubar in that order round off the top 10. Custom, Skybits, Bois, Jasko, Fusions, Undertaker, all in extremely close proximity in the standings. This grid could go any way on those points. Of course, Little Bear in 18th, the last driver in the standings at the moment. Young IP scoreless so far, and Honning will of course be off of the standings chart next week ahead of Bahrain as he's moved to Tier 2. Luktra, of course, will be taking up that slot in the standings chart. Of course, the constructors standings, and this is quite intense at the moment. Ferrari out by a mile in first at the moment, but 262 points. They've been driving spectacularly this season so far. Of course, McLaren in second with 140 points. Alpha 108, Williams 103, Red Bull 102, Haas 96, Renault 96, and Toro Rosso 88, with Mercedes in ninth, 71 points, and Racing Point at the back of the grid with 54 points. I do believe we are getting ready to go here in this lobby in just a few moments' time. And what do you think about these standings there, Mikhail? Because they are quite interesting, especially those constructor standings.
Oh yes, for sure. We've always had, through the entirety of this season, a very, very close constructors battle and drivers battle. To be fair, it's a real testament to all these drivers keeping the competition so tight. Of course, you can't discount Zamajo way up there, and he's been putting in a stellar performance over the course of the season. A couple hiccups here and there, but on the whole, he's been driving superb. and it really shows with the constructors total.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. How do you feel Lutra, of course, the newest driver to the full-time rosters, not the newest driver to the grid, because we've seen him throughout this season, but the newest full-time driver to take a seat here in Tier 1. He's come off quite a strong couple of finishes. We saw him win in Italy in Tier 2, finished P2 last week in Spa, and how do you think we're going to see him do, carrying some of that momentum over into the Renault here in Tier 1?
I'm very curious to see how he goes. He's had some very strong performances reserving in Tier 1 throughout the season. But given the full-time drive opportunity, I'm really curious to see how he fits into the mix, especially with some of the new drivers that have come in while he was in Tier 2, especially Bois and Shenji. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Lutra matches up against those two.
Yeah, for sure. Lutra not being a stranger to Bois, of course, he raced with him in Tier 2, so he's got some familiar faces as the grid has shifted a little bit since the last time we saw him as a reserve driver. You got Shenji on the grid, Bois on the grid. We have a couple of reserve drivers today stepping in. Trek is reserving. We'll figure out who for in just a few moments, of course. We have rain in quali, Mikal. Holy, hold the phone. Huge news here in Budapest. Ooh, dear.
Yeah, it does seem to really be pouring it down here. I'm seeing some wet tires in the Mercedes garage. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, Striffium, but
I see
it's
them.
full blown. It is full blown, ladies and gentlemen. We've been waiting for this since France, and
Yeah.
now round 12, the rain strikes again.
Yeah, and we have a full grid today. We have only, I do believe, one reserve two reserves. So it's going to be Alex Bitto in the seat for Young IP, I do believe, over at Toro Rosso, as he has not made the race today. And Trek in the Mercedes, sitting in for, I do believe,
That would be custom, I think.
Custom. Yeah, so Custom, we know he wasn't going to be able to make the race today. He wasn't able to make his race yesterday evening in another league that he participates in, so I suppose it was expected. Now, the first driver out of the pits on these full wet compound tires is going to be the Haas driver of Skybits. And we'll have to
Those
see what
aren't
kind
full
of
wet.
rain he's in the inter tire, according to my chart here. It could be a bug, though, as it's showing green. It's going green paint there.
I'm seeing intermediates on that Haas, so obviously Skybits doesn't. The rain's that bad. He's gonna try.
It was, of course, my broadcast menu here, setting best tire lap, which had everybody at medium. So Skybits, Trek, and Jean all leaving the pits on intermediate compound tires. Of course, we don't know as of yet what the weather is going to be like for the race itself. It is a 50% distance
we
race.
do.
We do.
Sorry to cut you off there, Trippy, but we do. It will be a dry race.
I
so
see.
These drivers won't, have to worry about the whole qualifying on softs, mediums. They won't have to commit to their strategy straight away. However, that does mean that pretty much all the grid will be running a dry setup. And in conditions such as these, Strophium, I think saying it would be a challenge to get this car around the circuit quickly is an understatement.
Oh, without a doubt. We saw here earlier in Tier 2, while I was casting with Henry earlier on, that Turn 4 and Turn 5 definitely playing on these drivers' minds. I mean, Tier 2, we saw 7 retirements, majority of those being in that section of the circuit. It's going to be even harder to do in the wet. It's going to be even harder to do on the intermediate compound tires, as we are now on board with Skybits making his way down through Sector 1. You can see there, not going as fast as you'd normally see a car fly through that section of circuit in dry weather. Coming up through Turn 4 now, he gets very, very slowed down in that Haas. He drops everything to make sure he can get through cleanly. Very important to try and not touch that inside curbing through turn 5, which we just saw him do. Big slip of revs there in the 5th gear in the Haas. And, you know, this is the ultimate equalizer, as they say. This torrential downpour is going to play a massive role in how this race is shaped, because qualifying here in Hungary is absolutely crucial. Very difficult overtaking circuit. Turn 1 is realistically the safest overtaking zone. We saw Liam last race in Tier 2 making consistently clean overtakes down there. And we saw contact and collisions in other places that we wouldn't normally see those things, you know. So of course, especially in wet weather here in qualifying, these drivers have to be very careful. And throughout this race, I feel like it's going to shuffle the grid to quite an extent that we're going to see a very active overtaking race today here in Hungary. Of course, these drivers all pushing for those podiums. Hopefully, we don't see too many outlandish risks being taken today, but Skybits, he crosses the first lap 134.1, and then you can see there Bois on pole position, a 133.2 on the full wet compound tires. But Zamajo crosses the line fastest on those wets, a 132.1 the time for our championship leader. Zamajo now on provisional pole in the Ferrari.
Very interesting to see that the intermediates are still setting like relatively competitive lap times, having Jean only a 10th behind Zamajo on those intermediate tires. So I do think we'll see the switch from the majority of the grid eventually. But yeah, as the times start to roll in, of course we have Zamajo and Jean 1 and 2, Pytrek making his debut, I believe, for Mercedes. He's put himself in P3, Bois P4, Yoda P5, Skybits P6. Then we have the 2 Renaults, a Falcon and Lutra. And all these times, Strifium, are very, very tight.
I think we have, and we've seen it race after race here in MRL Tier 1 so far throughout the season. I mean, this is round 12. We've had quite a long time to really observe, learn these drivers' styles, and really get a taste of what they're capable of. Everybody here, as we always say, more than capable of taking podium positions. It is a very competitive grid now. 4 drivers remaining here in this qualification setting, yet to set a time. We have, of course, Zamis, Neon Rays, Alex Bitto, a reserve driver over for Young IP with BTFU as his teammate for Toro Rosso today, and of course Little Bear, after a couple races of absence, he is back on the grid there. And I do believe we just saw Zamis cross the line of 133.7 on the medium, so he's up into 7th position for Alpha. His teammate not too far behind him, currently in 10th, a 134.4 the time for Undertaker. But taking a look at Alex Bitto now, I do believe he's flying in the other Toro Rosso, looking to perhaps pass his teammate. He is on those full wet compound tires as well. And I think everybody's struggling here. I know some of the drivers here in Tier 1 did do some wet quali practice. Of course, you never want it to rain. You always want a nice, clean, dry race. It gives you the best shot, true to your pace that you've been displaying throughout the season, whether it be in practice lobbies, other leagues, or of course 5-lappers, stuff like that. So you want to be driving what's most familiar, and most of these drivers are used to driving in dry conditions.
Yeah, you could just see on that lap how much Alex had to wrestle the steering to get that car across, but he does complete the lap. It's a 134.969. So that'll put him in 17th, just ahead of his teammate. But there's a lot of action in the pit lane, Strifium, and there are some more green striped intermediate tires coming out on the circuit.
The tire strategy is very interesting here in quali.
Zamajo's still on those full wets, so the Ferrari driver doesn't think it's quite dry enough for those intermediate tires. But as that dry line starts to settle in, that may change very, very soon.
For sure, for sure. Now on screen, you can see the gap to pole position right now. Jean currently a 10th behind, currently lining up on the front row with that intermediate compound tire being the one he set his time on. Pietrek, the reserve driver over for custom today, currently in 3rd with a 3/10 gap behind pole. Now all the way from the front to the back, you can see Jasko there 4 seconds off the current pace. And I mean, who can blame him? These conditions, it is an absolute torrential downpour right now. You can see it coming down, especially through Sector 3 now, where you have Zamajo on his outlap. He's about to begin his next flyer. He's slowing down the car. He's getting things set up. And it's a very busy circuit here in qualifying. Of course, we saw in Tier 2 quite a few incidents in qualifying. And fortunately, not too many yet, knock wood, here in Tier 1. Now Zamajo rounding the final turn now. And away he goes in that scarlet red Ferrari.
Yep, so up through the gears it goes. 7th gear, just going over 300 kilometers an hour, hard on the brakes. Into turn 1, opting for 2nd gear, short shifts to 3rd to prevent that wheel spin. Still has a bit of a slide, but he catches it very, very well. Into turn 2, very, very late. Get on the power there. In these wet conditions can be very, very challenging to get that power down. He's 3/10 up as he makes his way into sector 2. You can just see with the steering wheel how much he has to wrestle that car. But he's carrying all the speed he can, especially in these unfavorable conditions, using all the track available through turns 6 and 7. Into turn 8 we go. Through the left, and now in the right, opting to stay in 4th gear. You can just see how tentative he is to get on the throttle. I think it's just a testament to the quality of drives we have on this grid tonight, Striffium.
Most definitely. He's doing a fantastic job here on this lap. It's quite clean. Very clean, I should say, considering the conditions before him as he comes around the final 2 turns.
Just see, oh, he's lost the rear there a bit. He managed to catch it, but that'll definitely cost him some time. Chenjay comes across the line with a 1:31.1. And Zamajo will only improve by 500ths after that little slip up. So I think it's definitely time for the intermediate tires, Striffium.
I definitely agree. He's going to be going back into the pits, realizing that he's no longer on pole position, and that most definitely is going to be a red flag for the Ferrari driver, as that's definitely not somewhere he's used to being. Of course, not being on pole position. He's currently in 3rd. You can see now 7 out of the top 8 drivers all on those intermediate compound tires setting laps now. And you can see Henry, a 1:31.9, an absolute blistering time from him on those inters considering these conditions for the Williams squad. And Shenjay, you know, 8/10 ahead of Henry on the same tires really just shows how comfortable he is in these conditions. Fortunately for everybody, it's going to be a dry race, and this is literally just for the pecking order. But given that nobody has had to use any of their dry compound tires, it'll be very interesting to see where some of these drivers begin in that race as far as soft, medium, or hard compound tires. What would you suggest is the most optimal strat here, Mikhail, for a dry race here in Hungary?
Well, here in a circuit like this, like you can just see through all of these long medium speed corners that the tires really do overheat. And considering that, most drivers probably will opt to not use the soft compound, as they know to heat up very, very easily, especially through Sector 3. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of medium hard strategies, or vice versa. But, you know, some drivers might be able to make those softs work, make those softs last, or you never know, a safety car could completely throw things out of whack.
Most definitely. That's something to talk about. Of course, in our Tier 2 race just a short while ago, we had a multitude of virtual safety car deployed, but hold the phone as the Toro Rosso driver Alex Bitto, reserving for Young IP today, takes a pole position, a 130.6, throwing down the gauntlet, making his MRL debut today. What a lap from him, very clean. But yes, back to the safety cars. We did not have one full safety car deployed in our Tier 2 race today, and we'll have to see if that trend carries on over here in Budapest. Alex Bitto getting out of the way now for BTFU.
Is it just me, Strifium, or has the rain eased up a little bit?
I do believe it has, because
I think it's lighter.
Almost all of these drivers have jumped onto those intermediate compound tires. Everybody feeling a little bit more comfortable. You can see as BTFU makes his way through the chicane that there really isn't that heavy rain coming down now. But it's going to be different throughout the circuit. Of course, the circuit is around 4 kilometers in length. It is quite a long lap here, and it's a very technical circuit, but it's quite unique considering Formula One circuits. You could be in turn 1 and another driver in turn 9, and they'll have completely different dynamics of weather. Heavy rain in one area, light rain in another. And I do believe I agree with you in a general manner that the rain is lightening up here. BTFU now looking to start his flying lap on those inters. Currently in 11th on the grid.
We'll see what the Toro Rosso driver can do as Blag comes across the line, sitting a 130.046. That is a very, very quick time from the Red Bull. And Lutra smashes that out of the park with a 129.3. Yeah, this track is getting faster, and it's getting faster rapidly.
Lutra going to be very happy about that, like we said beforehand, making his Tier 1 full-time debut today for Renault, alongside Falcon, who has been with us since the beginning of this season. Renault now looking quite strong. Falcon has had some very solid performances over the course of this season, but Lutra has now joined the squad to better balance things out. And as I say that, it's a 1-2 for Renault right now. There you have it, folks. Lutra and Falcon lining up on the grid. A 129.3 for Lutra, and Falcon a 129.6 as BTFU now rounding his way into Sector 3. You can see there, he's also flying at quite a rapid pace. He set a purple Sector 2, and hopefully he's able to contest those boys in the, the Renault team at the front.
He's making his way through the final 2 corners now. Just keep it nice and easy with that throttle application. Jean is now retired from the session, so he'll be happy with the 130.7 as BTFU goes into 2nd place, breaking up those 2 Renaults on 29.5.
Fantastic job from the Toro Rosso driver. Of course, as we mentioned before the qualification session began, BTFU was in the top 3 championship runners for quite some time. He had a fantastic start to this season 2 Misfits action, and these past couple of races most definitely haven't gone his way. His bad luck started after the Easter break when we saw him in Germany very tragically lose control of the car exiting turn 1, and his race ended quite early. And if memory serves, we didn't see a single one of the top 3 drivers championship leaders finish that race. And unfortunately for BTFU, he just hasn't really been able to recover to that true form we saw ahead of the Easter break. Now today could be the day. P3 at the moment. Zamis in the Alfa Romeo, now on provisional pole with a 128.6, and things aren't over yet. Now Zamajo, previous provisional pole sitter, on an out lap. We'll have to jump on with him in just a few moments time. Skybits is also on a flying lap in the Haas, and this grid just continues to get shuffled around as tire strategies and choices change here in the qualifying. All of these drivers now about to get on to their final laps. I do believe the timer clicking down now. 15 seconds remaining, and anybody who's not on a lap is not going to be able to carry over into a new lap to set a proper time here, as that timer will hit 0.
Little Bear retires from the the session as the checkered flag now has dropped. So anyone currently on a lap is allowed to complete that lap, but they aren't allowed to start another one. So currently, Zamis is your pole sitter at the moment with a 128.6, but I dare say that that time won't stand for much longer. Pytrek comes across the line into that P2 spot, dethroning Lutra. So now riding on a board with the Haas driver of Skybits as he makes his way through Sector 3 now. Hard on the brakes. So he heads into the penultimate corner. Has a little bit of slide up from the rear, but he keeps it under control. Heading through the final corner now. Really putting down the power out of that final corner. He derates on his ERS, and that is only good enough for 18th place.
Wow. Alex
As
Bido
Alex-
on pole with a 128.4, and Zamajo shatters it with a 127.8. 6/10 the difference between P1 and P2 right now on those inters. The Ferrari slamming down the gauntlet at the last minute saying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still here, and you better not forget about me here in this beautiful red Ferrari. What a qualifying session. I love it when we see that kind of weather dynamic affect things, Mikhail. And this is going to be a very exciting Hungarian Grand Prix, to say the least.
Yeah, Chenjay came across the line there third at the very end, 1 millisecond ahead of the Alfa Romeo of Zamis. So very, very tight across the board.
Very tight. And here we have it, folks. This is your grid lineup ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Zamajo is on pole. Alex Bido lining up next to him, making his MRL debut today for Toro Rosso as a reserve driver. Shenjay in P3, Zamis in 4th, BTFU in 5th, Pytrek in 6th. Another great debut from him as well. Neon Rays in 7th. Fantastic to see him qualifying consistently lately. Luktra there in 8th, and we will get the rest of the qualification times for you in just a moment. But absolutely fantastic driving and qualification from everybody. Everybody's setting very competitive times here, especially in those wet conditions. And speaking of wet conditions, we are now into the session for the race. It is 50% distance, 35 laps to go, and it is going to be a dry race. So now that the super wet, difficult qualifying is out of the way, Mikhail, these drivers have a little bit of a moment to breathe ahead in this formation lap, and then it's heads down until the end.
Yeah, the challenge now comes down with passing on this track. You know, some drivers may feel they're slightly out of position, either in a good way or in a bad way. So they're going to have to really, really keep their concentration up. As you say, they will have a formation lap to feel out the conditions, as I'm sure most of them were getting used to those, that wet circuit. But in the dry, it's a very, very different beast.
Now we have a little bit of a difference in tire strategy here. Not too much of a difference, but 2 out of the 20 drivers here in the race have opted to start on the hard compound tire.
Yes, it does seem that Fusions and Jasko in P12 and P18 respectively will be starting on that white striped hard tire. So they're looking to go really, really long into this first stint, stay out of trouble, and gain positions that way with the massive overcut. But the rest of the grid on those yellow striped mediums, and no softs, thankfully.
Yes, of course, the soft tires here degrade at an extremely rapid rate. But for all of those of you just now joining us and tuning into this fantastic race that we're about to witness, make sure you smash that follow button. And of course, if you're interested in racing in a fantastic league like this, be sure to hit us up on Discord. My name is Stryfium, and next to me, across the world, is my good friend and Australian commentator, Mr. Mikhail.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what these drivers are able to do.
Oh,
What show they're able to
I'm
provide for us.
nervous. I'm nervous.
I'm very, very nervous. But, you know, probably not as nervous as some of these drivers on the grid are. You know, Hungary turn 1, it's a very, very hard braking zone to spot. You know, and especially off the start, that's your best opportunity normally to gain positions but also to lose positions. So if any drivers are listening to the stream, just keep that in mind. You can't win the race turn 1, but you can most certainly lose it.
All the drivers now lining up on the grid, getting ready to go here. I'm sure a great sigh of relief was had by all when they realized that it was going to be a dry 35 lap, 50% distance Hungarian Grand Prix.
See Zamajo just staring at those lights as Undertaker takes his spot on the grid. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, for round 12 of the MRL Season 2 Tier 1. It's 5 red lights ahead of the drivers, and it's lights out, and away we go. Looks like a pretty decent start from most of the grid. Looks like Zamajo has covered off Alex Bito fairly well. Looks like Chenjay looking around that outside. Zamajo defends into the inside. There's a bit of contact between the Toro Rosso and the Haas, but they managed to get away unscathed. Looking down further into the grid, looks like everyone's gotten cleanly from through turn 1. Looks like we have 2 Williams battling it out in the midfield. Looks like Neon Race, Henry, and Bois getting in the mix. Bois all the way down in 10th position. He'll be looking to make that recovery as they make their way through to Sector 2 now, Striffian.
What a fantastic start here for this Hungarian Grand Prix, but Pytrek's off at turn 5, and there goes Bois. He's blown his front right suspension, and that is going to be a yellow flag in Sector 2. You hate to see it. Pytrek, he tapped that inside curbing there in turn 5. He came out wide, and Bois had no time to react, and that is going to be the first retirement here in Budapest. Full-blown safety car deployment here on lap 1 for Misfits Racing League Tier 1. Wow.
So Mayweather may have come off his coffee break during the Tier 2 race, as he is out on the circuit, as you can see on the map, just coming through turn 1 now. But a lap 1 safety car again for the Tier 1 drivers.
Wow, you hate to see it that early. That was just so unfortunate there. No intent behind it as far as I can tell. Pytrek, he just... man, we talked about it a little bit in qualification. We saw it a little bit in Tier 2, but of course that turn 5 inside curbing, Mikhail, can be quite deadly. And Pytrek figured that out earlier than anybody. And you know what? Bois, he tried to go around the outside of Pytrek there. He tried to get away. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get far enough out wide to avoid that Mercedes flying across the circuit like that. You can see Pytrek now, the only driver into the pits, as it was really only him that suffered any kind of damage here in the opening laps of this race. Bois, very unfortunately, retiring out far too soon. You hate to see it. Bois has such a great pace in that Red Bull, but, you know, there's always got to be one guy, I guess, that gets the rough end of the stick, so to speak, here, as we have Zamajo now flying behind, not flying, but carefully driving behind the safety car. Now,
nice Sunday stroll, or Thursday stroll, as it were, Striffian.
Yes, for sure. A nice Thursday stroll behind the safety car as all of these drivers weaving a little bit, trying to keep those tire temperatures optimal. Everyone doing their best to try and keep things nice and tidy. Don't want to be exceeding any track limits. Don't want to be cutting any corners. The stewards are extraordinarily strict when you go off book behind the safety car. And hopefully Zamajo doing a good job to restart things here. I do believe we'll see that safety car in at the end of lap 3. We're going to go round one more time, and you'll see all of those intervals update appropriately as well as Zamajo crosses the line.
Yeah, just going back to the start of this trip, it was really, really it was a really good getaway from especially the top 3. You know, having Zamajo, Chenjay, and Alex, and it's going 3 wide into that, and everyone sort of survived that first sector. But then I think Pytrek just touched that inside curbing on turn 5 and just lost the car there, and there was absolutely nothing he could do. I think Bois was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, I'm afraid. You know, that can happen in racing.
Yeah, for sure.
These drivers who are remaining probably shouldn't get too complacent. They've survived lap 1, but, you know, with the safety car basically nullifying things, and we're going to have another rolling start. when the safety car comes in at the end of this lap, they're gonna have to survive it all again, Strifian.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, the safety car that early on in the race, it really, really didn't affect the pecking order on the grid too much right now. You can see now the only driver who pitted as a result of that safety car deployment was Trek. Everybody
Oh, the two
else,
race cars have come together.
oh
Fusions
no.
receiving a 5-second time penalty for colliding with his teammate.
Doesn't look like he suffered any front end damage though, fortunate enough for him. He is going to be on those hard compound tires though, and that could play quite difficult for him.
That's really going to hurt the red cut. That's really going to hurt it.
Yeah,
but we do have word from race control that the safety car will be coming in this lap, so Zamajo, as the leader, dictates the pace as Fusions gets awfully close to back of his teammate again. But all the drivers make sure those tires are warmed up. You can see Shenjie just right on the rear of that Ferrari, waiting for Zamajo to set off, and it looks like we are racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. So Zamajo is your race leader, but Shenjie looking down that outside. Looks like it's going to be side by side for the two leaders into turn number 1. Well, there's a bit of wheel banging, but Shenjie, I think, has held it around the outside, and he has. He's gotten past the Ferrari.
What a monumental feat by Shenjie in that Haas right now. Zamajo, driver of his caliber, is going to be pushing very, very hard here. Very good job from Shenjie on the restart there to get next to Zamajo down into turn 1. Now we're going through turn 4, and this is where the incident happened earlier. All of these drivers, you see that inside curbing there on the right. If you touch that curb, you're going to go for a ride, and it's just unfortunate that we saw the Mercedes do that to cause that safety car. But this is a fantastic battle we're witnessing here at the front of this grid. All of these drivers doing a very good job. Alex Bitto in that Toro Rosso just saying, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex, and I'm going to show you how to drive here in the provisional podium positions. Very nice from him. Zamis right behind him in that Alpha. You got BTFU running in 5th, trying to catch up with his teammate, Luktra, the full-time debut driver today. In 6th, having a good race here so far. Henry in 7th. Falcon currently running in 8th. Fubar in 9th, and Rackety rounds off your top 10 drivers here as we enter the first full lap after the safety car restart. You can see Zamajo, he's looking at Shenjie. He's not got the DRS down into turn 1 as he would normally as a result of that safety car. We'll see the DRS get deployed, of course, for lap 6 by race control so that these drivers have a little bit of extra power in those 2 DRS zones. Of course, the one in the pit straight and down through out of turn 1. Alex Bitto dropping back a little bit behind Zamajo right now. Zamajo looking very, very fast in that Ferrari. Alex Bitto doing a good job through turn 4 here. Zamajo is just sticking on the gearbox of this Haas. He's not giving Shenjie any option to breathe here through sector 2. And you can see through the chicane there, Zamajo doesn't even blink keeping up with this leader right now.
Yeah, the 2 Ferrari-powered cars out in front, keeping it very, very tight for Astrifian. Looks like Alex has dropped off a little bit from those 2, the current gap at 1.2 seconds.
Oh, and it's Fubar off! No, you hate to see it. There goes the Mercedes. We were on board with him as he was catching up with his rival Falcon, and he spun it on the grass, and we have a second safety car deployment here on lap 5. Oh, dear. No, Fubar, man. You know, it just seems like I select a car today, Mikhail. I'm riding on board with them for a few moments. As I did with Bois, I managed to catch that crash in a first-person view. I just did the same thing with Fubar. The curse of the commentator seems to be striking in full force today here for Budapest.
And as you say, we have another safety car. So it took a hiatus in Tier 2 and it's now about back out a second time in Tier 1. Very, very unfortunate for the Mercedes driver of Fubar. Yeah, as you said, just tapping that grass and that just really unsettled the car. He lost all grip and just 180. There was absolutely nothing he could have done, or nothing else he could have done to avoid that. As Jasko has used that opportunity to go into the pits as they see the race control is starting to go a bit crazy there. Let me just have a quick look at that to see what that was all about. So it looks like Skybits and Pytrek both have 10-second time penalties for exceeding the track limits.
Unfortunate for both of them, for sure.
Hindered their performance.
Well, Shenjay now in lead of this race with the very fast Ferrari Zamajo behind him. We'll have to see what Zamajo's able to do ahead of this restart. We saw Shenjay with an absolutely dominating move down into turn 1 on the restart last time around during the first safety car. We'll see if Zamajo is able to repeat that and make a safety car restart switchback on Shenjay. Alex Bitto now has been given an opportunity to stay with these front runners. As we saw him, he was beginning to drop back, and then we saw Bubar unfortunately take some terminal damage on that inside wall. So now he's back into the fight. Samus behind him, BTFU in 5th, and you know, these gaps have been tight throughout all of the green flag laps of running, and I have to say, I don't know what to expect here. We saw absolutely no physical safety cars in Tier 2 earlier. I do believe it was 3 virtual safety cars is all we saw. And now, not even a third or a quarter into this race, Mikhail, and we've already seen 2 safety cars come out. And that could play a very, very interesting role in tire strategy here as well, considering none of these drivers have opted to pit here on lap 7, as majority of the grid is still running on those 6-lap-old tires, most of them on mediums. Fusions is the only driver on hards with the same tire wear as those medium runners, or tire life, I should say, you know, being on those 6-lap-old hards. And then you can see Pytrek and Jasko down there in 17th, 18th, respectively, on the 1-lap newer tires.
Yeah, strategy is definitely going to be playing quite a crucial role here, as we do get word that the safety car will be coming in this lap. So now Chenjay is the one that will be pacing the field. But yeah, with all these safety cars, the life of those mediums is definitely going to be prolonged. So we'll see how these drivers find the grip, especially after cooling those tires down. Chenjay backs up the grid. You can see Alex raring to go as well. Looks like Chenjay has put his foot down, and we are racing again. Alex goes quite wide through the exit of the final corner, but we are racing once again, ladies and gentlemen, and it looks like the Williams of Henry has gotten a shocking restart, already 1.5 seconds behind on Lutra.
I certainly hope the Williams driver wasn't caught sleeping on that restart. We got Shenjay and Zamajo battling still here for the race lead out of this restart. You can see here Zamajo didn't quite get the jump Shenjay had last time around, as Shenjay is still out in front moving through into turn 5. Zamajo wants to get this move done sooner rather than later, as Alex Bitto behind him is also in very close proximity. And we have a few position exchanges happening up and down the grid right now.
Yeah, it's very, very tight at the top of the grid, but it's also very, very tight towards that fringe points area. I'm looking at that map, and it looks like the 2 racing points and Yoda in that McLaren are very, very close together as well, Strickland.
Yoda looking down the inside of Little Bear. He takes the move and runs away with it. He gets out in front of Little Bear. A fantastic overtake down the inside there. And you know what? Fantastic sportsmanship from Little Bear to give him the space in that turn. You can see Little Bear went went a little deeper into that turn just to make sure that there was no contact there. Very clean racing from the both of them. Quite a dive from Yoda. And you can see Falcon now into the pits. Yoda's up into 11th, and he's catching up with the racing point ahead. That is Fusion. Zamajo currently less than half a second away from Shenjay here. Still no DRS enabled here. We haven't had the use of DRS at all so far in this race. But I guarantee you when we do, there's going to be some position exchanges regularly as we come through down that pit straight. Now, Zamajo heading through Sector 2 now, heading down into the chicane behind Shenjay. Zamis currently on the rear of Alex Bitto. He's had to take a little bit of a cut through the chicane there. BTFU had a front row seat to that. Not too sure what happened. Maybe Zamis slept it a little bit on the brakes. We'll have to find out later on. But of course, BTFU gaining on Zamis in that Alfa Romeo. And it is a fantastic grid so far here. Jean currently less than half a second behind Pytrek, who we saw swing out wide there. Jean looking at the inside. He decides against it, gets early on the brakes, drops back behind that Mercedes. Now as Shenjay crosses the line in just a few moments here, we have a bit of an overtake. That's Luktra ahead of BTFU. BTFU behind him in 6th now. And Zamajo round the inside of Shenjay in turn 1. Shenjay still maintaining that lead over, moving round the outside of turn 1 as we go down hill now into the long fast right-hander here, short fast right-hander I should say. Now up through into turn 4 we go. Zamajo still very close to the rear of this Haas. Now I do believe DRS has been enabled. We won't see these drivers use it until they come across the line into lap 11. And we have a fantastic chunk of overtaking here. Yoda is into P10 now as a result of the pit stop we saw a few moments ago.
Yes, Yoda giving us a very, very solid drive so far. Making his way through this grid. He's gotten past one of the racing points as we saw a couple laps earlier. And he now has Fusions in his sights. Is he going to make the same move into Sector 3? Looks like he'll back out for now. But Zamajo is right on the gearbox of that Haas. DRS enabled. He puts it up into hot lap. He's using that slipstream. He goes to the inside, and I might be eating my words if I would say it would be an easy overtake, but he takes that inside line, and he does cleanly get past the Haas. So that is Zamajo back into the lead of this race, as Yoda has also made the move onto Fusions up into P9.
Fantastic driving from him, and I do believe that's going to be Jean. Very close to the rear of that Mercedes still, and Fusions is looking to gain back that position from Yoda. He's still extremely tight behind the rear of that McLaren, and his teammate Little Bear behind him. No damage on either of those racing points, running 10-11 at the moment, and Shenjay and Zamajo still keeping in very close proximity. Such a difficult overtaking circuit here, but Zamajo is beginning to try and push a gap away from that Haas driver at the moment. Alex Bitto is currently a second behind that action in 3rd. Now, looking back further down the grid, Jean has been in extremely close proximity of that Mercedes throughout this entire race. And I have to say, I feel like we're going to see an overtake from him. If not now, definitely down the pit straight. He is looking down the inside of the Mercedes, but he isn't going to have the time to make that move, so he's going to hold back. He's going to hopefully have a good exit around the final turn of this lap and look to get a good exit on that Mercedes. He is going to have DRS, as you can see, but Pytrek going to have DRS on Undertaker, and we have a fantastic train running behind Little Bear at the moment. And we have Luktra behind Zamis, currently less than half a second, both of them running on those medium compound tires. Pytrek still behind Undertaker, Undertaker within half a second behind Little Bear. On board with Luktra now as he makes his way through turn 4. Very important to try and keep it easy through those turns. He goes a little bit deep and wide through turn 5 there. Samus gets away a little bit. Undertaker now looking to capitalize on some positions as Little Bear is now about to begin a battle with his teammate. We'll see if team orders play a role to make things a little bit easier on the Racing Point drivers, but Undertaker doesn't care what happens between these two drivers. He's absolutely charging in the Alpha right now, looking to pick up those points. Not too much action going on in the top 10 right now. Neon Ray's currently within a second of his teammate, Yoda, charging through the grid right now on the 11-lap-old mediums, trying to make up some more points. He's currently running second in the Drivers' Championship, of course. Shenjay has now fallen back to almost a second behind Zamajo as well. And things still quite tight throughout the top 10 right now, but most of the overtaking action happening at the back of the grid. Mikau.
Yeah, we're seeing a very, very good scrap for these fringe points positions. Also want to note that Undertaker, currently running at 12th, did start from the back of the grid, so he's done very, very well to put that Alfa Romeo up into 12th place, but I don't think it's over yet, Striffium. As he's eyeing up that racing point into turn number 2. Little Bear goes very, very wide, getting a whole wash of understeer or dirty. I don't even know what that was, but he goes very, very wide. It's going to give Undertaker a little bit of a run to close up, but it's not close enough to make the move just yet.
Of course, Little Bear, Undertaker, Pytrek, Jean, Skybits, all in this battle. Excuse me, not Skybits. Skybits is currently 2 seconds behind, but he will be looking to catch up in that Haas, of course. Now we have Lutra catching up with Zamis. Zamis in that Alfa Romeo currently running in 4th. Lutra less than half a second away. Lutra has been performing very well so far this season as both a reserve driver here for Tier 1 and, of course, a Tier 2 full-time driver making his full-time debut in Tier 1 right now. He is going to have the DRS on Samus, trying to stick with him through the slipstream. He has a great carry of momentum here down to turn 1. I don't think it's going to be enough for a move, though. He thinks proper, takes his time. He's being patient. He understands we've got 21 laps to go, and he's doing a very good job. Very good job in that Renault. Zamis doing a very good job as well in the Alpha. Neon Ray is currently gaining on his teammate, and we have a bit of an overtake there. I believe it's Jasko and Rackety exchanging positions, and Rackety's now very close to the rear of Falcon in that other Renault. We'll have to see what he's able to string together in the Ferrari. Of course, we've seen Rackety have some fantastic races here. We had the double podium finish for Ferrari a few races back, and who knows, maybe he'll be able to join his teammate Zamajo up at the front once again. But he's currently running in 17th, gaining on the rear of that Renault, and Little Bear and Fusions still battling it out here. Little Bear gets out in front of him. Fusions drops back now. Undertaker still fighting with them, putting that pressure on. Fusions definitely feeling it, and Pytrek in that Mercedes, who we saw have that very unfortunate spin in turn 5 on lap 1, doing a good job of getting back into contention on those hard compound tires.
Meanwhile, back at the front of the grid, Lutra's just a little bit closer to Zamis with that DRS. I don't think it'll be close enough for... Actually, no, even my West Coast call, Daniel Ricciardo style. What a dive from the Renault, but the switchback from Zamis is going to have that better traction. But Lutra still the DRS. That was a great attempt from the Renault, but still not over. Zamis goes super wide. Might give Lutra the run through turn 3 they go. The switchback, it's not quite good enough. That was an amazing attempt from the Renault. Oh, but he gets a bit unstable through turn 4. But he manages to hold it. Very, very good car control. And great racing between those two, for good measure.
There was a very clear gap into that turn. If you don't take that gap, you are not a racing driver. As we've heard, said so many times over the years, of course, Lutra looking extremely rapid in that Renault, and I have to say that dive down into turn 1 was, like you said, extremely Daniel Ricciardo-esque. And wow, what a great job from Lutra.
It was a very, very great attempt from the Renault, but it still wasn't good enough as Zamis is pulling into the pits. So he's the first to blink. He's had enough of those medium tires after some 15 laps. He'll be going on to a set of hards, I presume, and Neon Reyes has followed him into the pits. So Lutra and BTFU now up a spot, and Yoda up into 7th as well.
Now, I just want to take a moment to comment. Jean has been behind this Mercedes pretty well the entirety of this race, within half of a second. He just hasn't been able to make up that gap and pull the trigger into 11th position. Pytrek also doing a fantastic job of defending against him and trying to keep up with Undertaker, Fusions, and Little Bear at the same time. Undertaker now into the points as a result of the pit stops ahead of him. You can see now Neon Rays dropping into 16th position. Samus getting out just 2 places ahead of him in 14th. And Skybits is into the pits as well. Rackety as well. All of these drivers opting to jump onto those hard tires to go the distance. We have just such great racing happening here in Hungary, and it really is a breath of fresh air, you know, considering how things went for these guys in Spa last week.
Yeah, it's definitely, we've seen some amazing racing so far as Zamajo makes his way into the pits and Lutra as well. So I'm very curious to see where Lutra comes out, but he gets a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane. Oh, that's definitely not gonna help. As Henry follows those guys in as well. I'm looking at that map to see where Zamus is. He's rounding the penultimate corner as we speak. Lutra coming through that pit exit, and it looks like the Renault has made the undercut has made the overcut work.
Zamajo coming out of the pits in 5th position on the hard compound tires now. All of those drivers ahead of him. Shenjay, the 2 Toro Rossos currently running 2-3, and the McLaren of Yoda all yet to pit, meaning that provisionally Zamajo is still leading this race. Little Bear behind him has yet to pit, and we have a yellow flag in Sector 2. That's Undertaker. We'll have to take a look and see here. It's the turn 5 curbing. You can see there, coming off of the grass, Falcon gets an overtake done on him. Doesn't look like... Oh, and Undertaker has a massive amount of damage on that front wing. Fortunately, it's fallen right inside of that pit window, and hopefully he's able to get that wing switched on over. His teammate, having just pitted, it's very good for him, meaning they won't stack the pits, and you can see some team orders coming into play there. Sam is getting by, but now Henry capitalizes on that as well, and there goes Neon Rays ahead of the Alfa Romeo as well. So Undertaker struggling, unfortunately, as a result of that front left wing damage. You can see there as he comes around the penultimate corner, and he is definitely going into the pits now. And I believe Jasko staying out, going long on those hard compound tires, and all of those remaining medium runners are jumping into the pit lane, with the exception of the now race leader BTFU in the Toro Rosso.
Well, he's definitely pushing for this overcut. He's 3/10 up on his personal best in Sector 1, and he's using that battery. He's trying to get that overcut. But yeah, as you say, the rest of the grid now on that hard compound tires, aside from our current race leader. The current gap behind 6.7 to Zamajo, who of course is on those fresh hard compound tires. But going back to that Undertaker incident, he just got a bit too eager through turn 4 and just messed up his line, and he just went straight into the wall. Luckily, didn't lose his one of his front tires.
There's some very really tight racing right now. Sorry to interrupt. Currently in P5-6, a battle for P4. Pytrek and Alex Bitto. Let's see if any of these drivers go into the pits there. As you can see, Fusion's on the 17-lap-old hards, 16-lap-old hards for Pytrek. These guys are fighting for points positions at the moment, making sure they get some positions. There goes Pytrek up the inside of that racing point. There's Alex Bitto looking for the scraps. What's going to happen here? Pytrek now up into podium positions. A little bit of a tap there between the Toro Rosso and the racing point there. Alex Bitto loses out on that one. Fusion's currently in P4. And a fantastic piece of racing from those guys. Very tight and intense through turns 1 and 2. Now coming down through turn 3. Heading down into turn 4. Let's see how these guys go. Alex Bitto right on the rear of that racing point, slowing things right down due to that very, very sharp left turn. Lots of curb through that one. Important to keep traction going through there, of course, heading into turn 5, so you don't spin that car like we saw Pytrek do very early on in this race.
Yeah, Alex Bitto is very, very close, all over the back of this racing point. He needs to get past it. He's losing time behind it, and Fusions goes defensive. As they make their way into Sector 3, Alex looks around the outside. It's not working, but the switchback going into the penultimate corner. They're side by side. It looks like he's gotten pushed out. And is that Lutra? I think that's Lutra. He's made his way through the both of them up into P4 once again.
Lutra took advantage of an extremely great opportunity there to jump into 4th position. Of course, he's going to be looking to go long here, but the battle between Alex Bitto and Fusions is not done. They're still battling down into turn 1 here. Wheel to wheel up into the turn. Alex Bitto ahead of Fusions now. Very good job from the Toro Rosso here on his debut.
That was a crucial move that Alex needed to make, and he's lost the position to Lutra in that battle. And Lutra and Alex both going to the end on those tires. So it looks like we're going to have a nice scrap for effectively that final podium place, as Pytrek is yet to pit currently
John
in P3.
within 2/10 on the rear of the Racing Point Little Bear right now, and we've had a retirement. That's Neon Rays. It's at turn 4. Oh, unfortunate for the Williams driver. A VSC has been deployed as a result. You can see his car as John has just passed it there on the left-hand side. And we have a VSC here deployed in Budapest. That is the 3rd safety car deployment. Of course, the first 2 being full safety cars. Take this opportunity to just say, if you're just tuning in, thank you and welcome. This is Misfits Racing League Season 2, Round 12 for the Tier 1 division. My name is Striffium, joined by Mikal. Make sure you smash that follow button. We're live every Thursday with the Misfits Racing League. And of course, if you're looking to join, check out that Discord. We're back to Green Flag Racing. Alex Bitto and BTFU having a bit of an exchange here. Excuse me, as Alex Bitto and Luke down into turn 1. Luke on the inside in the Renault. Alex Bitto getting out in front of him in that Toro Rosso as Fusions was into the pits. We saw a massive shuffle of positions there, confusing me a little bit on the timing tower, but Henry is up, battling wheel to wheel with Zamis. Wow. Very tight racing between the Williams and the Alpha there.
Very, very tight, very clean as well. It's great. It's great to see this. Absolute intense on-track battles. Not something particularly characteristic of Hungary, but these Tier 1 guys are really showing us up there. Hey, Strifia.
Oh, most definitely. These guys are putting an absolute spectacle on right now here in Budapest, and this is one of the most intense circuits you can have these kinds of battles at. Qualifying, like we mentioned earlier on in that rainy session, extremely important. And you know, just looking at the screen now, you can see the gap from 17th to 1st, 58 seconds. And Fusions has retired out of the session. Where is it at? Turn 5 again has struck as Skybit's now rounding. You can see Fusions there, front right suspension failure. Very, very unfortunate for him. Now, VSC deployed once again here in the session. Take this opportunity to show you guys the position changes here so far. Zamajo started in pole position. He is still there leading this race. Shenjay has made up a position. Alex Bitto has dropped back 2 slots. But the most significant gain, without a doubt, is Yoda, who has moved up 8 positions from 16th all the way into 8th position. Doing a fantastic job is the McLaren driver. Zamis, though, having gone into the pits now, the most significant drop of positions, having started 8 positions ahead of where he's currently running. And I do believe we are going to see these drivers back to Green Flag Racing as Luktra is in the middle of a battle with Yoda.
He had a bit of an off. I think he touched that inside curb at turn 5. He's really, really struggling with the handling. And I do believe he has, it doesn't look like he has any wing damage, but certainly had all that grass on his tires. So he seemed to really be struggling. He lost a couple of positions there, so he's now down to 8th place, but his race isn't over yet.
Very good race so far here. Only 4 retirements out of the 20 drivers who began this campaign. We have Henry currently running in 6th, looking to catch up with BTF. Currently less than a second the gap, but he has Yoda behind him as well. And we've seen some fantastic battles between Yoda and Henry throughout this season. We could be in for another treat between the McLaren and Williams drivers, of course, today. Little Bear getting an overtake done on Jean down through into turn 1 with the assistance of DRS, of course. A little bit wide from Little Bear there. John looking for a move. And there goes John outside of turn 1. Oh no, he's crashed outside of turn 1. He's going to take a massive amount of damage on the front right of that wing. And there comes Falcon looking to pass John down into the left-hander. Very unfortunate loss of traction from John there. He just span it into the inside wall coming out of turn 1. I was just about to say, fantastic job from him so far, getting into the points to join his teammate, hopefully for a double points position. And Falcon swings out, loses the rear a little bit, gets that car under control again, currently running in 9th. Zamis behind him had a front row seat to that, and I'm sure he was biting his nails trying to see what was going to happen to that Renault. But Falcon doing a very good job of keeping the car under control on the turn 5 exit.
You know, this isn't something that we typically spectate, but there's a battle at the very, very back of the grid. Looks like Rackety is all over the back of Skybits on those fresh medium tires. He's definitely looking to get that place and get rid of that wooden spoon Stryfium.
Without a doubt, speaking of overtakes, Lutra jumps out ahead of Jean on the fresh mediums, so very nice from him. He's now up into 11th, looking to regain some fantastic track position that he had earlier on. Like you said, Rackety, very close to the rear.
On the outside of turn 1. Gives Falcon the big old squeeze. They keep it clean, and Zamus is still at D9.
Fantastic move from the Alpha driver. No doubt. And I do believe Rackety's going to have an opportunity here down into turn 1 as well. You can see the Ferrari along the inside of that Haas, the Ferrari power. You can tell when it's a Ferrari power because that Ferrari didn't have that much of a carry of momentum over that Haas down into turn 1, even on the medium compound tires. Rackety, though, getting the move done. Jean gets into the pits, so Rackety's up into 14th now, and we've had another shuffle of positions as Yoda and Henry battling now. Yoda's up into 6th position. But Henry is going to have the DRS down the pit straight into turn 1. We'll see if he's able to make a quick switchback. Alex Bitto will jump on with him. He's going to have DRS on Pytrek. Pytrek is currently running in this race in that Mercedes on 23-lap-old hards. And here goes Alex Bitto round the outside of turn 1. And it looks like he's made that move done. Henry still sticking on the rear of Yoda in that McLaren. He is going to have DRS exiting turn 1. Is it going to be enough to make a move into the left-hander? I don't think so. And fantastic wheel-to-wheel action we're seeing here in Budapest so far. 11 laps to go as we're currently running here on lap 25. Yoda, though, runs a little bit wide there. Hopefully he didn't lose too much traction on those tires. Comes around through turn 4 now, looking pretty clean there. Henry doing everything he can to keep up with him. And just like we said before, we've seen these drivers race wheel-to-wheel, battling all season long, and Rackety in the Ferrari sets the fastest lap of the session here so far. A 1:18.5 on those 3-lap-old medium compound tires.
I think the challenge for Samajo has been set. Get that full 26 points as he starts lap 26 of this campaign. So 10 more laps to go. And this battle for 6th place at the moment. Yoda slowly catching BTFU as well, so looks like Henry's getting dragged along for the ride. But that Williams still does have that DRS. But it does seem he's a bit further back this time than last lap.
Yoda showing fantastic pace on those hard compound tires. Henry doing everything he can to stick with him. Of course, only the 2 DRS zones on this circuit going to make things quite difficult for Henry as we move through sectors 2 and 3. Sector 1 being the only zone in the circuit with those DRS zones, of course, and they're back to back. So you can't even kind of chain them together in order to maintain that less than a second gap. It is still 10 laps to go here in Hungary, and you know, that 10 laps can be crucial. As we saw in Tier 2, that race, at least for the race win, not race win, but the final podium positions came down to the absolute last few turns. So hopefully we see that kind of race at the end here as well. Of course, Zamajo currently 7.2 seconds ahead of P2. Not quite the gap we saw from Astrudite when he won in Tier 2 earlier today. I do believe the gap was around 17 to 18 seconds in a race of his own earlier on. Fantastic drive from him. But Henry now still doing a fantastic job, even throughout the whole circuit, of sticking with Yoda in that McLaren. Now with the DRS once again, it's almost as if we're seeing a little bit of deja vu here. Now we're going to go down into turn 1 with the Williams once again, and he's going to get DRS for his second time down through into turn 2.
Yeah, he just can't seem to get close enough to the McLaren to make a move. He's sticking well. He's sticking with them very, very well, but just can't seem to get close enough to make that, you know, finishing blow, to take that P6 and get those extra points.
I have to say, Mikhail, I'm quite impressed with the racecraft and performances today from our reserve drivers. Of course, we have the 2 of them, Alex Bitto and Pytrek, reserving today here in Tier 1 for MRL. Oh, no.
Spin ends up right on the apex of turn, I believe that is turn 8. He's lost a big chunk of that left side of his wing, so he'll definitely have to pit now. Very, very unfortunate. The commentator's curse strikes against Striffian.
Wow.
Might as well just shut up.
I guess I need to shut up. Yeah, I was just going to say. I'll finish my thought, though. Regardless of his current running position, he has been absolutely driving fantastic. 25 laps the distance he's gone on those hard compound tires, which is just fantastic. Of course, having to pit after that first lap earlier in this race, and he's now unfortunately taken a 5-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane. We saw a massive lockup on entry there, and he's going to jump onto the softs and go for the last 7 laps of the race on those. So it could be a wise decision. We'll see where he comes out. It looks like he's going to come out just outside of the points as he's now running once again down to the end into turn 1. Let's see if Jasko is going to be able to catch him. It doesn't look like it, so it could be a solid pit stop there for the Mercedes squad as he's going to come out in 11th. Jasko not going to be too far back behind him though on the 8-lap-old mediums. And this race has been absolutely fantastic. Now we have Little Bear chasing behind Zamis. Down through turn 4 we go. Zamis. Oh, very, very risky there. He went very wide through turn 4. We saw a little bit of a snap of oversteer, and he was able to get things under control leading into turn 5. Now we see Little Bear tap him on the rear ever so slightly through the chicane. Currently less than a second is the gap.
Yeah, Zamis used that DRS down that main straight to get past a little bit early at the start of this lap, but considering the tire compound difference, Little Bear's doing very well to still stay in that DRS of Zamis, but as I say that, it looks like he's just fallen out of it, so those hards not giving him the grip that he needs to stay with the Alfa Romeo.
Now speaking of grip, BTFU right now and Yoda are about to engage in a serious combat here in Budapest, Mikhail, as BTFU on the 11-lap-old hards is about to fight with, of course, BTFU on the 10-lap-old hards is about to fight with Yoda on the 11-lap-old hards, and Henry isn't too far behind them. Currently 2 seconds the gap between Henry and P5. Yoda had a fantastic gain of momentum down through the pit straight earlier on with the DRS on BTFU, and as long as he's able to maintain that DRS position over the Toro Rosso, BTFU is fully aware that he's under serious threat from the McLaren.
Yoda's definitely putting in a stellar performance from a, I'll say less than optimal qualifying. Made his way all the way into 5th place, and he's eyeing up that 4th place currently held by that Toro Rosso. He will have the DRS going into lap 30 for these two drivers. So 6 laps to go. DRS, that you see that rear wing is wide open for the McLaren. But he's not close enough to have a dive just yet. Trying to get a good exit out of turn 1. But it looks like he'll have to sit behind for another lap.
Falcon in P9, currently on the road to P8. He is gaining on the rear of that Racing Point Little Bear. He is in striking distance, but he isn't going to be able to get the move done here through turn 1. He's going to have DRS down into turn 2. But turn 2, an extremely difficult overtaking zone if you aren't right next to that driver on the exit of turn 1. So, Falcon, hopefully patient enough to strike another day. We have 5 laps remaining here as we move through turn 4. And these gaps are starting to come down for a few of these drivers. Falcon currently half a second away from P8. Yoda half a second away from P4. And Luktra currently gaining on the rear of his teammate, not having the performance he wanted to have. He was running a great position earlier. Unfortunately, it looks like he caught a little bit of that turn 5 curbing like you had seen earlier in the broadcast. Falcon is looking very, very quick in this Renault, and Yoda, we're going to jump on with him as he has a fantastic run on BTFU down into turn 1. Where's he going to go? He goes down the inside. BTFU moves out wide to the outside. Yoda doing a fantastic job squeezing him just a little bit, and he's out in front. Fantastic driving from the McLaren and Toro Rosso. Alex Bitto doing a great job for the Toro Rosso squad as reserve today as well, currently running on the podium 11 seconds ahead or 11 seconds away from P2. The gap currently 5.5 seconds away from P4. So Yoda, definitely some ground to make up there. We'll see if BTFU and him can carry on this battle. BTFU, of course, if he can stay in DRS now of Yoda, he will be under threat. Now Henry in 6th position, also going to be looking to catch up with him. And we have another overtake as Jasko and Rackety in turn 1. There's Jasko up the inside of Rackety. Very good driving from him. Rackety, though, with the switchback, is he going to be able to make the move down the inside? Very, very tight driving here. Rackety sticking with the rear of that Red Bull. He's going to go on the outside down into turn 4. This is going to be intense. There's a bit of contact. Rackety goes wide. Is he going to spin off? There goes Rackety into the wall. And there goes his front left end plate. Major front wing damage for the Ferrari, and that was just as risky as it can get through that turn, Mikhail.
Yeah, he just didn't have the patience. Like, he wasn't that far alongside. Like, he was alongside, to be fair, but it just wasn't enough, especially to make a move like that around turn 4. We saw that last year with Lewis Hamilton battling with Max Verstappen. There just isn't enough room to go past there. And Rackety has paid the price for it, losing a significant chunk of his front wing. He'll most definitely have to pit again.
Luktra and Falcon now. DRS train behind Little Bear. Luktra unable to do anything about his teammate at the moment as a result of the fact that Falcon is also within DRS range of P8. So they're still fighting for those fringe points, as you call them. BTFU running a second behind, less than a second behind Yoda in that fight for P4 at the moment. That one's going to come down to the wire, and Luktra and Falcon are putting on super large amounts of pressure here on that racing point. Little Bear makes one mistake, and it's those Renaults past him in an instant. But of course, the Renaults need to keep things clean as well. Falcon going a little wide there. We saw some dirt kick up into the cockpit of his teammate behind. But I have a feeling Luktra within a fantastic tight position of his teammate here. It's quite possible we see a double overtake from him, perhaps on his teammate and Little Bear, but we'll have to see what kind of run both of these Renaults get. And there goes Falcon. He loses the rear, and there goes Luktra into him. They've both reset the track. Little Bear has escaped, and he's now into P8, and the pressure's off a massive amount. They're both going to take away and lose the DRS on the racing point with 3 laps to go here. Wow. You hate to see it. Luktra's gone into the pits and retired. Not happy is the Renault driver on his full-time debut, and Pytrek, the reserve driver for Mercedes, now into the points once again in 10th, currently running 3 seconds behind P9 on the 5-lap-old soft compound tires.
Yeah, he's definitely been putting in some fast lap times, but it still isn't quite enough, and on 5 laps, those tires are definitely boiling.
Jean with a move on Undertaker into turn 1. Jean, ooh, he looks a little squirrely there, catches some oversteer. You can see there he almost went into the wall, but he managed to get things under control ahead of the left-hander. Undertaker now going to be looking to get that position back. And BTFU still sticking with Yoda. They have been battling and keeping within the DRS range this entire time, while BTFU has been pulling away slowly but surely away from Henry in that Williams. Henry having a fantastic race in that Williams so far here, running in P6, now running on 17-lap-old hards.
BTFU still all over the back of this McLaren.
And it looks like Pytrek may have had another issue here, as he's now missing a front left end plate on that car.
Yeah, Pytrek had a spin going into turn 8, just having too much of that curb, I think it was. It was either that or turn 7 out of the chicane, and was just, facing straight into the wall. He does opt to pit, change that front wing for the final lap of the race, which Samaja, I believe, has just started. So, current gap 9.6, and it looks like Pytrek will jump all the way down to 14th.
Now, for all of these drivers here, Jean threw down to Rackety, so 11th through 15th position have all unfortunately been lapped in this campaign by our race leader Zamajo at this point in the race, so it's quite possible we see their races get cut short as a result of that, having seen Zamajo begin the final lap of the Hungarian Grand Prix here for Misfits Racing League, Tier 1, Season 2.
You can see off there on the left side of the track, Pytrek getting out of the way. Doesn't want to interfere in this battle for 4th place at the moment. But all the best passing opportunities have now, well, passed for BTFU, so he's going to have to try and find some other way past the McLaren. You see that fuel light starting to flash, so he's using everything he's got left. Yoda doing very, very well to keep the Toro Rosso behind him at the moment. But of course, penalties for exceeding those track limits can always play a huge factor, especially when the gaps are this close, Striffian.
It's Zamajo crossing the line for the win here in Hungary. Taking it home for Ferrari. Shenjie now rounding the final turn there. You can see Jean and Undertaker catching the early flag. There goes Shenjie. He's taking it home in 2nd position. Alex Bido now making his debut here in the MRL. What a fantastic race from him. He is going to finish this race in 3rd for Toro Rosso. Great from him. Yoda rounding the final turn now with BTFU right on the rear. He's going to cross 4th. BTFU in 5th, and Henry finishing here in 6th. Zamis now rounding the final turn in the Alfa Romeo, looking to bring it home in 7th position. Jean, Undertaker, Skybits, Rackety, and Pytrek all catching that checkered flag early as a result of being lapped, as we mentioned before. Little Bear now coming home in 8th position. Falcon for Renault. Very unfortunate we saw him and his teammate get into it. Luckily for him, at least one of the Renaults will take home points today as he crosses in 9th. And Jasko, the last driver to finish here on the grid in the Red Bull, is going to finish here rounding off the top 10 positions. What a race this was, Mikhail. Congratulations to everybody who finished in the points.
It was absolutely incredible. There was drama all across the field. Some great overtakes, both for 1st and those for 16th place. You know, I didn't know where to look. It was an absolute spectacle. Like, I'm losing my words here. That was such a great standard of driving, and I don't think I can even pick a sole driver to have driver of the day. I mean, maybe you can help me out with that one, but I think it goes to basically the entire grid.
Based on how we saw things in Tier 2 unfold, I didn't know what to expect coming into this race, Mikhail, because last week I had said, you know, Tier 1 might do a little bit better in Spa, and it turned out to be the opposite. And you know what? Today, I'm quite proud of our Tier 1 drivers. They put on a spectacular show. Lots of fantastic overtaking, a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing in a circuit where you wouldn't normally see that amount of wheel-to-wheel combat and racing. And I say combat because when it is in Hungary, it's deadly. As we saw, of course, Falcon, you know, some of these drivers, they're running so tight behind their rivals. Falcon and Luktra, the perfect example near the end of the race there. We saw, of course, Falcon slipped the rear. Luktra, not enough time to react, and he just careered into the rear of his teammate there. Unfortunately, both of them resetting the track, not something we like to see, but, you know, the racing, the tight racing is what we love to see, and I hope everybody that tuned in today enjoyed that fantastic Hungarian Grand Prix. Of course, to go down the grid, Zamajo once again taking the race win here for Ferrari. Shenjie finishing next to him in 2nd. Alex Bido, the new kid on the block, finishing in 3rd. Yoda 4th. BTFU rounding off the top 5. Henry in 6th for Williams. You see there, he started in 11th. And you know what? Yoda, what a superb drive. 16th to 4th we've seen him go this race. Zamis in 7th. Little Bear 14th to 8th. What a great drive from him. What a fantastic race we've seen here today. And, you know, congratulations to all of our drivers for one of the cleanest races, I'd say, this season as far as wheel-to-wheel driving goes. Of course, we did have the 2 full safety cars and the VSC. You know, Yoda, he started the race in 16th. He dropped to the back of the grid. He moved his way up, and what a finish from him in the McLaren. We've seen him go from 20th to 1st. We've seen Neon Rays do it. You know, some of these drivers, they continue to surprise me race in and race out, Mikhail.
Well, I think with all the overtakes and the extreme, racecraft and skill that we saw today. I'm looking forward to Bahrain next week more than ever, and I hope you guys are as well. Both Stryfium, the drivers, and those watching the stream in the chat, get hyped for Bahrain next week because if the racing is anything like this, it's going to be a thriller.
Bahrain definitely going to be a race not to miss this season for MRL, because I'll say this from racing with a lot of these drivers on a regular basis, there's some very, very fast racers in here to take on Bahrain. Of course, Mikau and I, big, big fans of the Sakir circuit. And I can't wait to see that one, Mikau. We know that track like the back of our hands, and it's going to be a fun one to commentate for sure, especially like you said, if the racing is anything like what we've seen today. So make sure all of you guys tune in next Thursday for the 2 MRL League races happening for round 13 of Season 2 in Bahrain. That is going to be at 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time or 9 o'clock British Summer Time for Tier 2, and at 5 o'clock Central Daylight Time, 11 o'clock British Summer Time for Tier 1. And I am super excited about that. Of course, if you're new to the channel, and I know that there's quite a few of you in here, make sure you smash that follow button, because we are live every Thursday for fantastic wheel-to-wheel action here for MRL, and we greatly appreciate all of your support. Of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter to know when we go live next, when our new videos are released on YouTube, and of course the standings updates, which is a new thing we're putting out on Twitter as well. But last but not least, make sure that if you're interested in racing with some clean drivers or joining a fantastic racing community, you join us on Discord, and you could even join the MRL and see yourself up here on the podium during an MRL League race. Of course, all of the races, if you joined halfway through, all of the VODs, shortened highlights, circuit guides, and coming soon, race reviews, all going to be on YouTube as well. So make sure you click that link down below and head on over there and subscribe. As usual, my name is Stryfium, and joining me from Australia is Mikau. Mikau, do you have any last words to say to our viewers today?
I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said. Just you'd be a fool, I tell you, not to tune in next week for Bahrain, because it is going to be cracking.
Most definitely. I can't wait. I hope you guys can't wait either. I know that our drivers have been pumped about Bahrain for some time, and that is going to wrap it up for us, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this evening's action, both for Tier 2 and Tier 1, and if you joined us for both, thank you very much, and we hope to see you guys next week. Of course, join us in the Discord, join us on streams. We're going to head on over now and raid Mr. Samus, or Zamus, I should say, Mikau, as he is the founder of the Misfits Racing League, and we're going to jump on over to him, wish him a, congratulations on finishing in the points, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great night. Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you smash that like button to let us know, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more great racing content. We are live on Twitch every week on twitch.tv Misfits Racing League. Hit us up in the description below for our Discord and Twitter links as well. Always looking to get connected on those, and if you're interested in joining the MRL, Discord is the place to be. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on our next video.